Hey there friends, it's me Peter, and I am excited to announce the premiere of Peter's Storytime right here on my vlog. Yep, this is the big secret I've been keeping from you guys, although it wasn't really that great of a secret since I kinda let on quite a few clues about it. I'm sure some of you probably figured out what I was doing, but nevertheless, this is what I was planning. Over the past couple of years, Storytime videos have become quite popular here on YouTube. In fact, if you go on and look up Storytime, you will find pages upon pages of videos of people talking about different stories from their lives. And since I'm a storyteller myself and have already started writing my life stories via Project 25, I thought what better time than now to put this to video format. Now, as someone with a photographic memory, there are plenty of stories I could tell for this feature, and quite honestly, I was kind of wondering what I would pick for the first story to tell. But then I realized something. This year marks 10 years since I graduated from high school. And while a reunion is still up in the air as to whether or not it'll happen, my thoughts were, what better way to celebrate than with sharing some of my favorite memories from high school? So, once a month, from now through December, I will be sharing one story that took place while I was in high school. And most of them actually involve high school. In fact, all of them will involve high school. And to make this easy on myself, I decided to make the story have something to do with the month I'm telling the story in. So, what better way to start than by talking about something that happened to me in January? January was always an interesting time because it always marked the beginning of second semester. Second semester meant changes. My sophomore year meant I was transitioning from kinetic wellness to sophomore health. Junior year meant I was transitioning from a free period to financial management, and senior year meant I was transitioning from human anatomy and physiology to zoology. But not only did January mark the transition to a second semester, but for New Trier, it also meant final exams. Yeah, I don't know why, but New Trier always has their finals in January. This has never made any sense to me whatsoever. I mean, you have 2 weeks off for winter break, you forget everything you've learned up to the semester, and then you have to start cramming for final exams 2 weeks later. I don't know who came up with this idea or why they're still doing it, but it makes zero sense to me. As for the winter finals themselves, there's really not much I remember about them, mostly because I always dreaded taking the final exam, and I've pretty much blocked my memories of them out. Except for one, and I remember it for not a very good reason. It was January 2005. My mom had dropped me off at the front of New Trier about 15 minutes before my final exam was supposed to begin. This particular final exam was for plane geometry, a class that, well, I enjoyed the teacher, I didn't really enjoy the class itself. And it had nothing to do with the teacher, but math is my worst subject by far in school. And geometry was probably my worst subject, or at least second worst behind pre-calc, college algebra, and trig, but that's a story for another time. So it's safe to say I was not looking forward to this particular final. Even though I had studied very, very hard for it, math and I have always been mortal enemies, and I knew I was not going to do very well on this. But fortunately, Miss Nielsen, my teacher, gave us a couple advantages. One, we were allowed to use a piece of scratch paper to do our work, and two, she would let us bring our calculator with. That made me feel a whole lot better, since my calculator made me feel very comfortable in math situations, since I can't really do math in my head. So my mom drops me off at the front of the school. I walk in the front doors, and I'll never forget, the classroom I was taking my final in was on the first floor, right down the first floor hallway, right across from the computer lab that only the math department used. So I walk up, I got my pencil in hand, I got my scratch paper in hand, and I started feeling around in my pocket. I did not have my calculator. Immediately, a chill went down my spine, and I started freaking out. And then I started freaking out even more because I didn't have my cell on me. I very rarely used my cell back then. I didn't even know what the number was, to be quite honest with you. And it was at my home. So I had no way of calling Mom and saying, Mom, do me a favor, run back home real quick, grab my calculator, and swing back. But even if I did, there was no way she could make it back in time. It takes about 10 minutes to get to and from New Trier from my house, and the final was starting in about 10 minutes. So even if I was able to get a hold of my mom, I would have been screwed either way. So I didn't really know what to do. Now my nerves had completely taken over. I was able to maintain my composure, but I did turn to my friend Rico and say, "You're not going to believe this. I forgot my calculator at home." And Rico's response, I will never forget. He just looks at me and he goes, "That sucks." At which point I said, "Yeah, that sums it up very, very well." It was around that point Miss Nielsen came in and unlocked the door for us, and we all filed in and took our seats. Now, I probably could have asked her for a calculator if I really wanted to, but for whatever reason, it never crossed my mind to actually ask her for one. I think it was because she said we needed to bring our own calculator, so I assumed that she wouldn't provide one for us. So, nerves completely wrecking my insides, the clock began, and I began working on my final. The rest of that day is kind of a blur. I don't know if I had any more finals at that point. I don't even remember telling my mom that I'd forgotten my calculator. I'm sure I did at some point. I don't know if it was then, or I don't know if it was later. Or heck, maybe I didn't tell her about it. Maybe she's watching this, finding out about it right now. And if you are, sorry, Mom. Oh boy. So a week later, when I got my final back, I was prepared for the worst. I thought I was going to get it back. There was a big red F stamped across it. I was worried Miss Nielsen would be just wondering why I had failed so badly. Imagine my shock when I get the final and it had a C- written on it. I just about died right there. I looked at the final and I'm thinking to myself, this can't be right. I cannot have gotten that high of a score on this final. Apparently I did. I don't know how I scored a C- on this test that I had no calculator for. I thought for sure I was going to fail it. But a C- was just below my average grade in math. I was about a C average in math. So I really don't know how it happened, but I somehow passed it with a fairly decent score. So go me, I guess. Apparently I didn't need that silly old calculator. And that's the first edition of Peter's Storytime, my friends. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more story times, simply click that subscribe button down below. And until I see you again next week, this is Peter saying see you later.